WLWT investigates now a history of bad behavior. Tonight, we're learning much more about that Elmwood Place police officer who was just fired after he was found slumped over the wheel of his car.
Investigative reporter Jatera McGee digging into his police jacket, and what she found is pretty concerning, and she's live right now in Elmwood Place with this story you'll see only here on WLWT. Jatera.
Well, hi there, Mike. I've now confirmed the now fired officer worked for 3 local police departments in the last 3 years. I also obtained his personnel files, which show red flags overlooked by Elmwood Place Police when he was hired last year, including an admission to drinking and driving more than once.
I think it's very embarrassing. It's embarrassing to the people that are working. It's embarrassing to the village of Elmwood.
Elmwood Place Police Chief Randall Newsom's response to this body camera footage of his own officer. Anthony Armbruster appeared slumped behind the wheel, then struggling through field sobriety tests July 14th.
The body cam video was terrible.
Armbruster admitted he'd been drinking but refused a breathalyzer.
I am not coming to work. No, I have court here in like 5 hours.
5 days later, he was fired by Chief Newsom. WLWT investigates uncovered it was not his first time in handcuffs. 2 months after being sworn in at Elmwood Place, he was accused of assaulting his 3-year-old twin boys and 5-year-old daughter after they made a mess. According to a Boone County Sheriff's Office report, throwing the 2 young boys violently against a wall in a fit of rage and grabbing their daughter's face and screaming profanities. The case was handed to Florence Police. Its report was heavily redacted before it was released to us. But court records say the children had visible injuries, and Armbruster would fall asleep with his service weapons accessible to the kids. He pled guilty to endangering children charges in October and was given probation. How was he allowed to continue being an officer when he was actively under probation in Kentucky?
He pled to misdemeanor charges in Kentucky, so that case was adjudicated already.
When Armbruster first applied, he listed 14 prior jobs over 6 years. He only lasted a full year at Lockland PD. A review of his personnel file there shows he received 3 written reprimands. Sources tell WLWT he was being investigated in December 2020 when he resigned. He told Elmwood Place he resigned for divorce, but also checked yes that he was asked to resign. By December 2021, he was back in a police uniform for Owensville Police. He wrote on police applications last year he last drove under the influence about 6 months ago, and when asked how many times he'd driven under the influence and could have been arrested, he answered 3 to 4 times. He admitted to pushing a recent girlfriend and punching a wall when police showed up, and to altercations with soon-to-be ex, stabbed with coat hanger, came at him with a knife. He's been at several departments in the last few years. Do you think that he should continue being a police officer?
I do not.
I do want to mention that Newsom was not working at the department when Armbruster was hired. Newsom was just promoted to chief, in fact, in May. The chief who hired Armbruster resigned in December, and the mayor who was over him passed away that same month. We're live in Elmwood Place tonight. Jatera McGee, WLWT News 5.
All right, Jatera, thank you. As a provision of Armbruster's probation in Kentucky, he's supposed to serve 90 days in jail if he gets another charge. It's unclear if that's going to happen since his new charge is in a different state. We were unable to reach Armbruster when we tried to get a comment tonight. At last check, he said that he's working to obtain legal counsel.